So listen, I want to thank everybody that's always watching our channel, and every single day we're always bringing out content, information that is really meant to help you to get educated. So whenever you make financial decisions, it's based on logic, math, and science, certainly not emotional timidity. And today, we're going to talk about how to become a millionaire with no money. Every once in a while, when you work really, really hard and you follow your heart, you get lucky enough to meet a world-class legend. And today I got with me none other than Dolf De Roos.
Hey,
What's
Rob.
up, Dolph? How you doing?
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
Dolph, Real Estate Riches, New York Times best-selling list for 7 straight months, which is based on the amount of books that were sold, as well as best-selling lists in 18 different countries. He's here today to share his story with all you good folks here that kind of watch our channel and really want to get educated and motivated on how to take next action steps on how to achieve financial freedom. So Dolph, first of all, thank you so much. I'm so honored to, I mean, you have no idea, this is like Christmas morning for me right now.
Well, that makes me feel
It really
good.
is.
But I'm happy to be here, so it's a real pleasure, yeah.
I know you are. And I've gotten to know you personally, and we are very good friends, and thank you for that. For all these folks that are out here, I guess let me just kind of keep it simple and start off, where did it start for you? Like, where did the Dolf De Roos story begin?
Oh, gosh, you know, I was born in New Zealand. My parents were from Europe. I ended up going to school in 6 countries. Wow. So, you know, people often ask, were your parents in the military? And I say, no. Well, were they in the diplomatic service? And I said, no. What were they? I said, I don't know. Maybe they were on the run. But whatever it was, we moved around a lot. And that's got some disadvantages. You don't stay in one place, and you don't have friends that you've known since you were at kindergarten. But people who point that out to me, I say to them, well, do you have friends that you've known since kindergarten?
They know them, but they're probably not friends anymore.
They don't know. I've met one, Sean,
yes.
and he knows someone from when he was 6. Other than that, no one. But the benefit is that I have friends all over the world, and I've been exposed to cultures and concepts. So I think part of the reason why I've expanded my mind to include things that other people don't always think of is that I've just been exposed to many things. So in that sense, it was a very rich upbringing.
And this was through high school into college, and did you settle in after college, or did that kind of stay the course where you were like traveling a lot?
You're assuming I'm settled now. You know, people often say, where did you grow up? And I say, there must be a mistake. I'm still in the process, you know. But no, it's an ongoing thing for me. I've lived in Phoenix, Arizona now longer than anywhere else. That's sort of an interesting milestone.
How long have you been there?
20 years.
Okay. Do you feel like you're leaving, or is that where you're going to?
It still feels like a temporary home in a way,
Yes.
but I travel so much that I don't spend much of the year. That also goes as part of the story.
Unbelievable. So, you know, when we think about a best-selling author, right, and we think of New York Times, which is different than Amazon, no knock on Amazon, but when we think about that, you know, you decided to write a book. How did that even happen?
Well, it's a funny thing. People always say, wow, you're an author, are you? And I say, well, not really, because I don't see myself as an author or think of myself as an author. I never set out to write a book. In fact, what happened is I was buying quite a bit of real estate at one stage, and these agents came up to me and said, how on earth do you manage to do that? And I said, I don't know, this is what I do. I said, could you share with us agents what you do? Because the benefit for you is we might have a lot of people that could find you more properties, but we can learn how you do what you do. And I thought, well, that's a good idea.
And you were a real estate investor, you weren't an agent. You don't sell real estate.
I've never been an agent. I've never had a license. I think it's good for people. I've trained over 100,000 agents to be better at their job.
Wow.
But I've never been an agent. And believe it or not, in the sort of reverse kind of thinking that I engage in quite a bit, I think it's been to my advantage that I haven't been an agent, even to teach agents how to be better agents. Because if I go through agent school in whichever part of the world I want to get licensed, then I'm going to conform to their normal way of doing things.
Yes.
And you can't be a maverick thinker and find better ways of doing things if you conform to the norm.
Because innovation typically comes from outside the industry.
That's right. That's why we say all growth happens outside of your comfort zone, right? So you've got to get outside of the comfort zone. Amazing. But I'll endorse people who want to be agents. One of the most frequent questions I get is, should I be an agent if I want to be an investor? And for most of them, they will learn. But think of it this way, too. Most agents focus on the 3% or 6% commission or 2.5% or whatever it is in their jurisdiction. I want them to focus on the 97% that they miss out on by brokering a deal.
Wow. Explain, please.
Well, instead of getting 3% commission and never earning another cent from that property, how about buying the property, giving someone else the 3%, or if you're your own agent, you can pocket that, but own the 97% that goes up every year with inflation, and the rental income goes up with inflation.
And in that scenario, they could actually get 4 different rates of return, which would be, as you say, appreciation, mortgage interest write-off, depreciation, and cash flow.
Right.
Yeah, amazing.
So,
and is that how you began to write the book when these folks?
No, so back to that story. So they asked me to speak at an event on a Thursday night, and I said, okay, I can do that. So I turned up and I shared my story, and they came up to me at the end. I'd never spoken before in public like that. They said, that was really good. Would you do it again next week?
And that was the first time you spoke in public?
I think so.
Wow.
I said, sure, they liked it. I didn't know if they would or not. So I went ahead and turned up again the following week, and they had even more people there, and I did the same talk, essentially. And at the end of it, they came up to me and said, that was really good. Would you consider coming again next week? And I thought, hang on a minute. Making mistakes is good, right? We learn from mistakes, but repeating mistakes is really crazy. So if I say yes, they'll have me here every Thursday night for the rest of my life, and my life will be boring. I said, no. Instead of me repeating what I said, why don't I jot down the thoughts I've conveyed and make it into a bit of a pamphlet?
Wow.
And they said, well, that's a good idea. So I started writing and writing and writing, and it turned into a book. It was too big for a pamphlet. So I thought, okay, I've got the makings of a book here. I'll see if I can get it published.
And how long did all that take from like when you first started writing it to the publish?
Oh gosh, I'm guessing now because it's 4 decades ago or something, but well, not that long ago, I'm not that old. But it was probably 4 months or something by the time you get all your ideas together.
Yep. And was there a ghostwriter, or you did all it by yourself?
No, I've written every word of every book I've got out there. And I know
how many
that's
books?
silly. I've got 23 books out there.
23 books. Wow. 6 different languages.
Yeah. And I think the others who use ghostwriters are probably smarter than I am, because I'd spend months writing these books, not full time, but 3 hours here, 4 hours there. And they spent 5 minutes doing it and just read and say, this is pretty good, probably better than I could have done. Let's publish it under my name. So that's smart. But anyway, I wrote every word of every book. And I went to this publisher, the largest publisher in the country, and I said, hey, would you consider publishing this?
Now, what made you do that?
Because it was a book. You need to get it published. We didn't think in those days of publishing your own books. Now we call it self-publishing. I can mention all the websites. You can get 1 copy of a book printed if you want, or 10 or 100, but in those days you couldn't. So I went to this publisher, and they came back after reading that, and they said, we're not so sure. It's a niche market. We don't think anyone will be interested. And they were the gods in this. They knew publishing. I didn't. I was a complete newbie. So I said, okay, I'll take your word for it. So I went to the printer and said, listen, I've told a few people I'm going to have this book out. I want to fulfill on that obligation. That's this integrity thing coming through, I guess. So I literally said to them, what's the minimum number of books that you'll print? And they blew me away with this astoundingly huge number of 500 copies. I said, 500 copies, how am I going to pay for that? And they said, that's not our problem. So I went ahead and printed this minimum 500 copies. And when they were delivered to my home, all these boxes full of books, I thought, how am I ever going to get rid of them? But in the back of the book, I had an order form. And to order, there was no web in those days. You had to mail this order form into my post office box, and we'd get these orders and fulfill them and send out the books. And I went through the 500. So I printed another 500. And then I printed 1,000.
Wow.
And 2 years later, the publishers came back to me, and they said, we've heard from the printer that you've exceeded the bestseller requirements by a factor of 6. I said, really? Why didn't the printer tell me that? I still wonder why he didn't.
Yeah.
But they said, you probably don't want us to publish it now, do you? I think that I've been miffed at them.
They said no, yeah.
And I said, no, of course I'd be happy to. So they took over the publication, and it was a required book in every major bookstore in the country for years after that. So that's literally how my first book came about. It was never intended to be a book, and even when I tried to sell it as a book, it was rejected.
And how many copies were sold?
I don't know. I don't know the stats on that one. Okay. I know what we've done in real estate. It's over 2 million copies.
Wow.
Yeah.
2 million copies.
Yeah, and it's in Bahasa. Most people don't know where Bahasa is spoken, but that caters to the most populous nation in the southern hemisphere, and Malaysia, Indonesia and Malaysia. And
you currently right now you have a book that's being redone digitally, correct? Is that what's going on for you right now? Yes,
we're redoing that one in audio format. I went into a studio and recorded the thing.
Unbelievable.
And yeah.
And you're now into the space of social media where you can reach all your different fans from across the world in a different platform.
Well, the world changes, and you can't stay behind. I grew up in a world where TVs were black and white, in the early days in New Zealand.
Yeah, and you had to smack the side of it.
Yeah, to get it going.
Yeah. So I think when I think about how do you become a millionaire with no money? And your book that's coming out right now is titled what?
Oh, this re-edition is called 101 Ways to Massively Increase the Value of Your Real Estate Without Spending Much Money. I believe it's the longest title on Amazon.
Wow. And what's that? And can you tell the folks a little bit about that book?
Sure. So that book essentially describes 101 different things you can do that don't cost much money, but when you do them to a property, it increases the value by way more than the cost of making that improvement.
Now, is this commercial? Is this residential?
It's got 3 sections. One's on residential, one's on commercial, and one's on oddball properties. You know, airports and I don't know, rocket launch pads and all those odd kind of things. No, you get involved in it. I can tell you stories about those too. But if you take just an ordinary house, we looked at one this morning actually, and it's in a dilapidated condition. The paint is flaking off so much that you see more wood than paint. Anyone looking at that house is going to say, well, that's not in good condition. It's a horrible old dingy house. I bet the wiring's shot, the plumbing probably leaks, the toilet probably doesn't even work. Why would anyone buy that? And yet you and I know that we can paint that house for maybe $400. Or if it's a bigger house and you're in an expensive, it might cost you $1,000. But when you paint that house and it looks shiny and new, anyone looking at it will say, gosh, look at that pretty little house. I love it. I bet the plumbing's in good condition, the roof doesn't leak, the wiring's good. And the value of that house has gone up by $20,000, even though it only cost us $1,000. In fact, we didn't even have to paint it because you employ a couple of students to do it. Give them some money, pocket money that they otherwise wouldn't have had, and you've got a painted house. So I always say to people, if you haven't painted yourself into a $20,000 profit, minus the $1,000, so $19,000 profit on a weekend, you've been spending too much time in bars and pubs and chasing the wrong things. Go and you don't have to do it every weekend, just do it one weekend a month.
Yeah, 12 a year, right?
And that's more than the average salary. And these opportunities are out there. And people will hear us saying this, and they'll say, wow, I wonder if that works. And then they'll go on and do something else.
You know, that's a good point because you've seen so much when it comes to not just real estate, but all the different businesses that you consult in and everything else. What do you think it is that holds people back from the thought into the action steps and follow-up? Anything you've seen through the years that's a commonality that kind of represents?
There are patterns. And one of the biggest things that hold people back is this fear of what if it doesn't work? But what if it doesn't work? And, you know, I'll come up with all kinds of crazy ideas, and you and I have discussed ideas that are really crazy, but we can even talk about mild ideas. Painting a house, to me, is a mild idea. And by the way, if $1,000 is too much, just paint the front of the house. It'll still go up by nearly as much. But they'll think, yeah, but what if it doesn't work? What if it's a hoax? What if we're just saying this because we're having fun in front of a camera instead of actually having fun doing houses? And so they won't embark on the project because it's fear of failure, or fear of ridicule, or they don't have the confidence to do it.
And for you, you have a team around you now where, you know, there's certain programs that people can come check you out if they look at any one of your social media platforms and be able to go down to one of the links and your programs pop up on how you can help educate folks and really show them on exactly how to go from hello to yes, or from, you know, thought to execution. And I think what you got going on is really special, and your message for all the folks that are out there is phenomenal. And keep in mind, Dolf De Roos has not only all the different things that we just spoke about, but he's spoken on stage with Tony Robbins, or for Tony Robbins, is that correct?
For 20 years,
For 20 years. Also, Rich Dad Poor Dad spent at least 5 years in that ecosystem, and his reputation precedes himself. So, you know, for anyone that's out there that's really looking to crush it and really looking to take that next step, when you hear a guy like Dolf De Roos tell his story, and I really want you to share the one story where you turned $20 into $2 million. I think that's an unbelievable story.
Have you suggested to them already that I've done that?
Well, yeah, he's turned $20 into $2 million. $20 into $2 million.
I am
overnight.
Speaking to you directly now, away from Rob. I understand that you won't believe that. 20 to 2 million overnight. That's stretching the limits of credibility. I get it. I'm with you. But maybe if we have time, we'll go into how that's done.
I would love to hear that.
But here's the interesting thing. So this book, 101 Ways, it's got ideas as to what you can do to a property to massively increase its value without spending much money. Painting it is one way. Putting flower beds in is another way. Renovating the kitchen, that might cost a bit more, but the increase in value is huge. So there are things on residential properties, but at the end of the day, what controls the value of a residential property?
I guess the neighborhood or the environment itself.
Exactly. The market does. You and I can say, well, we've done things to the south. We want it to be worth $3 million. Everyone's going to laugh at us. And if we put it on the market at $3 million, it won't sell. So the value of a house is based on comps. A 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home of this age and this condition with this view is worth $348,000 in this market. Therefore, the one next door or across the road or up the road, assuming it's a similar age, condition, size, style, view, everything, it's going to sell for roughly the same, a bit more, a bit less. We can't change that. Second question is, who determines the rental value of that house?
The buyer and seller.
Well,
the rental value, I'm sorry about that, whatever the comps are in the area.
yeah, it's the market.
Yes.
If a house like that, 3-bedroom, rents for $1,400, then yours will too. It might be a bit more because you've got an extra garage or something, but it's going to be $1,400.
Yep.
So how do we measure the return on a residential property? The return on a residential property is the rental income divided by the purchase price. So the rental every year is $10,000, the purchase price is $100,000, the return is 10%.
Is that the cap rate, or is that a different calculation?
Well, you're jumping a massive
I apologize.
shotgun, a double
As
barrel
I'm from
shotgun.
Bayonne.
Yes. So the return is 10%. The return is determined by the market because it's the rent which is determined by the market divided by the purchase price, which is so we can't do anything about that. If in your city average returns are 7%, you might luck out and find one that's 8%, but essentially there's little you can do. And there's little you can do really to change things. The bank will lend you 80% of that market value.
Yes. He's dropping knowledge right now, folks, so please take that, rewind it back, and listen to it one more time. Go ahead.
Okay, now let's switch for a moment and
Yes.
talk about commercial property.
Ooh.
With commercial property, there's a different formula. It's going to be a little bit more tricky, folks, but here it is. The value of a commercial property equals the rental income divided by the cap rate. What is cap rate? Cap rate is short for capitalization rate. It literally means the rate at which you capitalize the rental income to arrive at the value. Most agents, and this is one of the things I train them when I train it, they get it wrong. They say, well, this property is selling at a cap rate of 5%. They mean it's selling at a return of 5%. Because my first question when they say it's selling at a return of 5%, even though they use the word cap rate, is I say, okay, interesting. What are market cap rates for this category of building in this area? Because if market cap rates are 8% and this building's selling at a return of only 5%, I'm not interested. But if market cap rates are 3% and it's selling at 5%, suddenly I might be interested.
Yes.
But here's the question. What determines the cap rate? Well, the market does. It's the average of all the returns that similar properties have been selling for. What determines the rental on a commercial property? Ooh, don't be too quick
So it's not
to
the
answer.
comps. Okay. Is it
So
the comps?
here's a question. If we can figure out a way of doubling the rental on a commercial building, have we not, by this equation, doubled the value of that building? Because it's the new rental that's double what it was previously, divided by the same cap rate, the value's doubled. So let's give a practical example. I came across a funeral parlor. In case you don't know, what happens in a funeral parlor is they stick hollow stainless steel tubes into bodies. They are no longer living bodies, and they suck out all the blood and replace it with formaldehyde and do horrible, I mean, to think of it as horrible, we don't want to go there really. It had been vacant for 3 years. No one could find a tenant, no one knew what to do with it. Sometimes I get the suggestion of turn it into a restaurant, but then it's got to be vegetarian, and you get into all kinds of complex things. So what do you do with a vacant funeral parlor? It went up for auction and failed to meet the reserve price. So the price kept coming down. So would you have bought it?
No.
No, of course not. I don't want a vacant building that you can't do anything with except pay property taxes and insurance. But what I did do is I employed someone at the princely sum of $8 an hour, which was the going rate at the time, to phone every funeral director going further and further from this building to say, hey, there's a vacant funeral parlor available. Would you be interested in operating there? Now, did I risk that some of them might have said, oh, yes, I do, and they went ahead and bought it? Yes. But I wasn't concerned about that. Very few funeral directors want to own real estate. So it took 2 days, and at the end of the second day, this woman found a person who said, oh, yes, I've always wanted to expand my operations there. What's the deal? And that's when she put me on the phone. From hello to yes, right? I said, listen, it's a vacant funeral parlor. It's got great things going on. Why don't you check it out and see if you like it? So I said to him, here's the deal. If you're willing to sign an LOI, a letter of intent, or a heads of agreement where subject to me buying the property, you will become a tenant, then I'm willing to have a crack at buying the building. And he said, not so fast, Sonny Jim. I'll only do it if you give me a long-term lease. Now think of the consequences of this, folks. On residential properties, they tend to want short leases in case they want to leave. He wanted a long-term lease.
Great.
Now here's one of my 8 golden rules. Never be the first to name a figure. That person usually loses. Yep. So I would have been perfectly happy with a 5-year lease. That's a pretty long time span, right? But instead of saying that, I said, And just how long of a lease would you like? And he said, I'll only do it if you give me a 10-year lease with a right of renewal for another 10 years. Now, in the bank's eyes, that's a 20-year lease.
That sounds like Christmas morning.
It was Christmas. Every day is Christmas
Yes,
for me. It really
yes.
is. Because people don't get this. That's why you have to have this maverick way of looking at things.
I love that.
So we signed the heads of agreement. I went ahead and negotiated a deal. To the seller, the building wasn't worth much. It had been on the market for 3 years. He was paying property taxes. He just wanted to get rid of it.
Yep.
So I got it for a song. I went to the bank to get a mortgage. Now, banks are very conservative and they take the lesser of the purchase price or the appraisal. So I went to the bank and I said, Mr. Bank Manager, I know I'm paying a pittance for this property, but that's because when I bought it, it was vacant. But now I have a tenant on a 20-year lease.
Yep.
Surely it's got to be worth more than I'm paying for it. And he said, I'm paraphrasing here, well, you know that we're ridiculously conservative and we've got to conform to all these federal regulations, blah, blah, blah. But he agreed, and he gave me a 60% mortgage on their new appraisal, which was all but $10,000 of the purchase price. In other words, I only had to put $10,000 into the deal to make it work.
That's unbelievable.
You can't do that with
That's
residential.
unbelievable.
You've got to put 20%
Yes,
in.
yes.
And if it's $1 million building, that's 200,000.
grand.
If you don't have 200,000, you can't do the deal.
Yep.
So I've made most of my money in commercial real estate, specifically by finding vacant or semi-tenanted commercial buildings. I buy them at a multiple of their current rental income, because value equals rent divided by cap rate.
Yep.
And then I get another tenant in and increase the rent. The value doubles. The bank gives me 50%. That's the purchase price, and I'm on to the next one. And you might say, well, is it that easy?
It sounded really easy.
I think it is.
Yeah, you just
I
made
mean-
it sound like I can go do that right now.
Yeah, and you can,
Yes.
and you can.
Please tell the folks the good story about the $20.
Oh, the $20.
This is the greatest story. Is this in your book or is this just a separate story?
It's
this
in
in 101
several
ways?
publications. I think it is.
Okay,
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I've got to set the scene for this one. It happened in Jakarta. Jakarta is the capital of Indonesia. Indonesia, as I think I mentioned before, is the most populous nation in the southern hemisphere, 280 some million people. And the congestion there is so bad that you measure the distance to where you're going across town, not in kilometers or miles if you're still in imperial units, but in hours. It's 3 hours to get there and 5 hours to get there. So the client had a building in the CBD, the Central Business District, and the ride to the airport should have been 45 minutes. However, because of congestion, you don't know whether it's going to take 4 hours or 6 hours. That means if a director in this office had a 9 a.m. board meeting, he could not book a 2 p.m. flight because he may not make it. So the first thing is, what do we spend the $20 on? A bucket of paint and a brush. That's all. And we went onto the roof of this building. It was a flat concrete roof. And I painted a big white circle. And in the middle, I painted the letter H. And I turned it into a helipad.
Wow.
Now, full disclosure, we needed permission from Civil Aviation Authority. It's like the FAA here, the Federal Aviation Authority, to have helicopter flights there, and that involved a few promises of helicopter flights to kids and all that sort of thing. But we got it passed. So now you had helicopter access to the airport. You could get there in 15 minutes. And the currency there is the rupee, about 14,500 rupiah per dollar, and they work in square meters, not square feet. But when you convert from rupiah and square meters to dollars and square feet, the rental was about $14 a square foot. And because of the helipad, the rent went up to $16 a foot. Why? Well, some people thought it was worth the increased rent to have helicopter access to the airport. Other tenants knew they would never use the helipad. It was just not their thing, but they had bragging rights. Our building has a helipad, right?
And you were able to get the right tenant because of that.
Right. So we got a $2 lift, and there was 100,000 square feet there. So 100,000 square feet times $2 a square foot was an increase in annual rent of $200,000. And when you divide that out by a 10% cap rate, you get a $2 million lift in value. Bingo.
Wow.
That the bank finances.
Wow. And did you hold that property for a long time, or was that a short-term strategy? Or?
Oh no, they still own it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
That's how it's done.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is you can do it in residential as well.
Okay.
You know, because I once had a meeting cancel on me in Phoenix, and so I booked a flight to Vegas. For those who don't know, it's 37 minutes flying. That's wheels up to wheels down from Phoenix to Vegas. So I went there and I came back just before my office closed and my staff were leaving. And they said, "Where did you go for the afternoon?" I said, "I went up to Vegas." And they said, "What, did you gamble?" And I said, "No, I don't gamble. I believe that the real jackpots are in the suburbs." And they said, what did you do? I said, it's hard to believe, but I bought a home without using any of my own money, and it's cash flow positive. And my staff, and remember, we're in the real estate education business and the real estate investment business. My staff said, you can't do that. And I thought, if my own staff doubt what I've just said, the world needs to be a little bit educated on this. So I said, and I made a public claim, I regretted it for a long time afterwards, I made a public claim that I would go to Vegas and buy one house a week for an entire year.
Wow.
And after 3 months, I'd bought a princely sum of 2 homes. And that's when I regretted having made this claim, because I thought, I'm going to have not egg on my face, I'm going to have a couple of omelets on my face, you know. But I persevered and fine-tuned the system. And I ended up doing it in 9 months, 52 homes. And I've got a book called 52 Homes in 52 Weeks. All of them bought without any of my own cash and all cash flow positive.
Unbelievable.
And we detail there how it's done. Every home, how we bought it, whom we bought it from, how it came about.
So what does it look like now going forward? Like what do you see the next couple of years? Where,
there are opportunities galore, because you've alluded to the fact that the world is changing.
Yeah.
We have social media now that we didn't have.
Yeah.
We have color TV now, but who has a CRT screen? No one knows what CRT is anymore. It's all flat screen, and it's thinner bezels and no edges and even more channels. And I don't subscribe to any TV, because at one stage when I had the full-blown whatever package you can get, I had 600 channels. You could not go through the whole 600 channels without stumbling on something and saying, well, that's pretty interesting. I can justify watching that.
It's crazy.
And yet my belief is that if you watch TV a lot, you get no ongoing benefit from it. You get no benefit from the 3 hours you wasted on Wednesday, July the 13th, 19, whatever, watching some silly soap opera where the scriptwriter just wanted to make it enticing enough so that you'd stick around to watch even more ads.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
So the advice I give people, and I give it to you and everyone else and your viewers right now, if you want to improve your life, take your TV and throw it out the window. Now, I'm all for saving money. If you want to save some money, open the window first. I don't care, but get rid of the TV because it's going to hamstring you.
Yeah.
Do I have a TV? Yes, I've got one. I didn't literally throw it up, but I don't subscribe to any of those cable services or satellite services.
Yeah.
I think it's a waste of time. Go and create your own material, not even to broadcast. Just create your own life instead of watching other people's lives.
Amazing. And thank you for sharing that. Is there any other books on the horizon? Is there any projects that you're working on that we don't know about? Whatever you want to share? Or?
Yeah, there's always stuff that I'm working on. I'm having a lot of fun.
I can tell. Every time I'm around you, you're just excited, you're working hard.
And coming up with something new, to me, that's one of the greatest thrills, creating something where there was nothing before.
Yes.
Or traveling, Rob, going to another country and seeing how they do something that we just never thought of.
Yeah, yeah.
Like in Japan, space is at such a premium that parking a car is really expensive.
Yeah.
And in Phoenix and Salt Lake, I haven't even seen meters here, we don't have them. But in New York, it's quite expensive. It might be $20 an hour. Well, in the heart of Tokyo, it's even more expensive. So they have these parking buildings there where you drive your car and you step out and it goes on a platform, a bit like a paternoster elevator, if you know it there, where the cars just go up and down. You have a little plastic card to know where your car is. When you come back, you put your card in the slot and your car comes back down and they drive it out. It's on a rotating platform, it swivels around and you go. You can get 52 cars into a space that's 2.5 car widths wide and about 4 stories high. Think of the advantages. There are no driveways going up, so there are no fumes being generated. There are no muggings in the car park buildings because no one's inside there. You don't even need to lock your car. There are no thefts. No one gets up in there. And it compresses the space. It's just ideal.
Yeah.
No one did that anywhere else in the world.
It's so funny you're sharing that about Japan, because I saw one of your recent videos and you talked about the population is going down.
Right.
And you talked about how that could be good for pollution, but bad for real estate.
Exactly.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
That's why I don't invest there. The government offered me a building in Hokkaido, which is the northernmost island, and it was several billion yen, but it worked out at $30 million. They said, we will give this building to you under one condition. And I said, well, I better hear the condition, but so far I want to accept your kind offer, you know. And they said, well, the condition is you need to actually do something with it. You can't keep it vacant.
Okay.
So we tried, I had a team in there, we tried for 6 months to find a creative use for this building. An old age people's home, a university, a school, a nursing facility. At the end of 6 months, I had to say thank you very much for the offer, but I respectfully decline. We couldn't find a use for it. Declining population.
Yeah, amazing.
So that's how that manifests.
And you buy properties all across the world, right?
Well, I mean, not everywhere. We're in 8 countries, at the moment.
And you have a team. You have a team around you,
of course,
that helps you in all your decision making, and
yeah,
or it comes up with all the ideas, and then you decide from there.
Right. They come up with possibilities. And then we send our hit team in to see if this is actually a good idea.
And for any entrepreneur that's out there, no matter what business they're in, are you disciplined to processes and strategies and certain disciplines when it comes to your decision making on anything to do with your money?
Yeah, absolutely. I really believe, and Unblinded is bringing this to the fore, I believe in having a process and having a strategy and make it a list of items that you have to go through. Because when you systematize things, and we're not the first to say this, Michael Gerber said it with the E-Myth, where you have to have systems in place to run your business, everything can be systematized. And to the extent that you do that, you'll find things that work well and things that don't work so well. Focus on the things that work well. And then, analyzing a property. Figuring out how to find a piece of real estate, what you do when you go to a new country for the first time, then finding the property, then analyzing it, then how you negotiate it. They're all able to be systematized. And to the extent you do that, you'll be more efficient.
And for anyone that's out there that's really kind of paying attention, and by the way, the knowledge you've dropped on this video is incredible. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
And hopefully you guys and gals out there are getting all this. When I think about, like, right now, I'm just going to focus in America, the real estate market is significantly climbing. Like every day it seems like it. And if anyone's watching the video, they may say, well, why should I shouldn't buy right now because the market's going higher. What do you say to that person?
Yes, I fully agree with you. You shouldn't buy until conditions are perfect. And right now the market's come off the top a bit, and at other times the market might be a bit too low and it might crash or crumble, or the banks might collapse, or there might be a nuclear war. The challenge with waiting for the perfect time, and I've got a photo of a person who waited for the perfect time. I wish I had it on me, but I'd like to show it to you. It's a skeleton sitting in a chair with cobwebs all over him. You know, here's what happens, Rob, because I hear this all the time. Yeah. Now's not the right time. There'll never be the right time. You're better to do something today, even if it's not optimal, but try and make it optimal by doing things to improve the building, or getting a better tenant, or figuring out how to do it better next time. Because they say when we're really, really old, when we look back on life, we do not regret the things we did that we shouldn't have done. On the contrary, we regret the things we didn't do that we could have done.
Yeah.
That's a big lesson for all of us.
Yeah.
And I haven't come across a single person yet who says, you know, I bought a property back in 1983 or 1995 or 2006 or 2014, and I really regret it. Man, that's the worst decision I ever made. But I've come across hundreds and hundreds at events and from emails and you name it, who say, dang, you know, I thought I was doing so well by selling that property. I bought it for 125 back in whenever, 1998, and then I sold it for 400. I thought I'd done really well. But I just went online and saw what it sold for now. It just sold for 1.3 million. I could have made an extra, whatever it is, 900,000 in that case. Just by hanging on to it. And by hanging on to it for another 13 years, I would have made an extra 13 years of rental income.
And depreciation.
And depreciation and all those other things.
Yeah.
So I mentioned one of my golden rules, I forget what, I'll never be the first to name a figure. Another golden rule is seldom sell. It used to be never sell. But there are extenuating circumstances when it might be okay to sell. The major industry in the town was the coal mine, and it closed down, and now everyone's sell that property and move on to something else. But in general, seldom sell. People who sell tend to live to regret it.
Wow. Well, listen, Dolph, thank you so much for sharing. Unbelievable. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And for all you folks out there, if you want to find Dolph, you can check him out on LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Dolf De Roos. He's all over the place. His channels are growing very rapidly, and the content that he drops on a daily basis is incredible. And if you follow through with his programs, you'll be able to really have access to his intellectual property and strategies. And for all you folks that are out there right now that are truly looking to get educated every single day, we're dropping new videos, dropping new content. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and please don't forget to hit the bell so every time a new video comes out, you get a warning.